Hi, welcome to the Vendor Resource Pool video session. Staffing organizations may take vendor resources from their registered vendors as per the business need. Staffing organizations do not own the vendor resources like regular employees or contractor employees. Vendors manage the resource in their respective resource pools. WFMA provides the facility to the vendors for maintaining resource in their resource pools. A vendor resource may be in a vendor's resource pool, but the resource may not be available to the staffing organization for deployment unless the vendor resource is assigned to a vendor contract. At the time of assigning a vendor resource to a vendor contract, staffing organization route administrator selects resources from the vendor's resource pool as per the contractual agreement. Vendors may keep additional resources added to their resource pools for future assignment to vendor contracts. Click on the Resource Pool menu item to get to the user interface for managing vendor resources. As you see, these vendor resources are created in the resource pool earlier for the vendor organization. Click on the Add button to get to the user interface for creating a new vendor resource in the resource pool. Enter details of a new vendor resource going to be created. Notice that only upon filling in all the mandatory fields, the Submit button gets activated. Click on the Submit button to save the new resource. Upon saving the record, WFMA sends out an automatic email at the vendor resource contact email with the login credentials. With that login credential, the vendor resource can log in to his portal. Click on the View link of an existing vendor resource to see the details of the vendor resource. Click on the Update link of an existing vendor resource to get to the user interface for updating the vendor resource details. If resource email is updated, WFMA makes the new email address effective across the system. When a vendor resource needs to be separated, Vendor Route Administrator makes a separation plan by clicking the Planned Radio button. Notice that as soon as Planned Radio button is clicked, Separation Effective Date and Separation Comment fields get enabled, because these two data points are relevant for the vendor resource separation. Data entry is mandatory once these two fields are enabled. There are business validations against the date entered as Separation Effective Date. When the separation plan is confirmed for update, WFMA checks if the entered separation effective date is feasible. WFMA checks across lots of data. The vendor resource may have been deployed in some active projects. The vendor resource timesheets are in work in progress state, etc. By churning data, WFMA also derives and displays the earliest feasible separation date for the separation planning of the vendor resource. After a feasible date is entered and updated, WFMA keeps track of the date and highlights the vendor resource record in the user interface in red color along with appropriate comment as soon as the separation date goes past the current date. Vendor Route Administrator can separate the vendor resource online. If the vendor resource separation is set on automatic mode, the automatic process separates the vendor resource as soon as the separation date goes past the current date. Click on Update button to save any changes made. Vendor Route Administrator can deactivate an active vendor resource through Deactivate action. On deactivation, WFMA checks if the vendor resource has any active deployment. If yes, WFMA denies the deactivation. In that case, the Vendor Route Administrator has to make a separation plan for separating the vendor resource. On the other side, a deactivated vendor resource can be reactivated by the Vendor Route Administrator. Let us first deactivate the newly created vendor resource who has not been deployed anywhere yet. Click on the Deactivate link of the newly created vendor resource. As you see, the link has got changed to Activate. Click on the Activate link of the newly created vendor resource. As you see, the link has got changed to Deactivate. Delete link is used for removing the vendor resource record physically, but it is a restrictive operation. WFMA checks if the vendor resource record to be deleted is referred anywhere in the organization. If found referred, it does not allow removing the record. Click on the Delete link of the newly created vendor resource. Reconfirm the deletion in the dialog box. As the resource is not referred anywhere, it got deleted successfully. Thank you. See you in the next video.